Have you ever bought something that was labeled as healthy, but when you ate it or drank it, it tasted so good that you were like, there's no way this could be healthy? Today, we're talking about how to read food labels like a pro so you don't fall for marketing tricks and know what to look for when shopping for groceries at the store. Welcome to the Fit and Fulfilled Show. If you're a busy professional woman who wants to finally prioritize your health and happiness, this is the place to be. I'm your host, Soraya Russell, certified macronutrition coach, mindset coach, and lifestyle transformation coach. And each week, I share practical strategies to help you build sustainable habits, boost your energy, feel confident and strong in your body, and become obsessed with what you see when you look in the mirror, all without feeling stressed, burned out, or guilty. Let's dive in. So, this episode is really important because as you go along your health and wellness journey, I find there's different phases. So, when I first started my weight loss journey, I just focused on eating less calories. So, being in a calorie deficit. I didn't really care or wasn't really educated on food quality. If it met my macro and calorie goals, that's all that mattered. I wasn't looking at sugar, trans fat, saturated fat, artificial ingredients, things of that nature. But as I grew in my health and wellness journey, I also started prioritizing whole foods, more natural ingredients, less added sugar. And so in this episode, I really want to share with you how to read nutrition labels, what to look for, what to watch out for, so you're making informed decisions when shopping. So you're not just shopping for low calorie foods, but shopping for foods that help nourish your body and help improve your long term health. So the reason that reading food labels really matters is because a lot of these companies will trick you with what's on the front of the box. So if you look at the front of some sort of high protein box, it might say natural ingredients, high protein, certain things that attract you, organic. But if that's all you pay attention to, there might be things you're missing on the back of the label. But if you read the back of the label and know what you're reading, you'll know what's actually in the food. Is it really natural? Is it really organic? Or maybe they're saying, oh, this is really high protein, but it's also really high in sugar, really high in trans fat, really high in artificial ingredients. Sometimes a label will say, oh, this food is zero sugar. But if you look on the back, there's artificial sweeteners in it. But if you don't know how to read the label, you can easily fall for the marketing on the front of the package, which is why when you can read food labels, you really know what you're eating versus just falling for what the company wants you to think that you're eating. This skill gives you true food freedom because you're not guessing if the snacks you're eating are healthy or not. You truly know because you understand what's in them versus just seeing what's on the front of the package. So, the foundation of a food label, the first thing you'll see at the top of any food label is something called the serving size. Everything else on the label is going to be based on this number. So, a simple example that I found recently, right? So, I was looking at a bag of Sour Patch Kids and it said the serving size was 5 pieces of candy. That means the rest of the nutrition label is based on that serving size. So it's interesting because you might see, say, a bag of Sour Patch Kids. The serving size might be 5 pieces, but it says it's 100 calories. Most people will just look at the calories and think, oh, only 100 calories? That's not bad. I can still have the Sour Patch Kids, which you can. But what you might not realize, it's 100 calories for 5 pieces. Most people I know are not eating 5 pieces of candy. They're eating probably the whole bag, the whole serving size. And so when you understand serving sizes, you'll know, okay, yes, this says 100 calories, but for how many pieces of this item? So if it says 5 pieces of candy is 100 calories, and then it says, okay, this bag, one serving is 5 pieces, and there are, say, 5 servings in the bag, that means that each bag has 25 pieces of candy. And if we take 5 pieces in one serving times 5 servings, that's 25 pieces of candy. And then it's 100 calories per serving times 5. That means each bag is 500 calories. So 25 pieces of candy, which are really, really small, is 500 calories. So what this means is if you ate an entire bag of Sour Patch Kids that has these numbers on it, that means you're actually eating 500 calories, but you might not know that because you just see 100 on the label, so you think it's only 100 calories. So that's why it's really important to understand serving size before you go through the rest of the label, because when you see serving size, you'll know, okay, if I'm going to get this food item, it is, say, 100, 200 calories, but for this many pieces. So if I want to stick to my calorie or macro ranges and 100 calories is what I want to allocate to this item, then I should only be eating 5 pieces per serving. So keep that in mind when you're shopping at the grocery store, when you're looking at a snack that you want to have. If you want to have the Sour Patch Kids, that's fine, but make sure you're reading, okay, it's 100 calories for 5 pieces. So when I have the Sour Patch Kids, I'm going to stick to 5 pieces of the candy. By the way, a lot of the things I'm going to share, you might have to listen to a couple times. So I definitely recommend saving, downloading this episode. And that way, when you actually go to the grocery store, you can come back and listen to it a second time. When you're in your cabinet looking at labels, you can come back and listen to it again. But definitely recommend listening to this when you're driving, when you're sitting, and then also listening to it again when you're actually ready to start reading nutrition labels. Because that way, when you go to start doing it, you already have a bit of the context and you can just listen to specific parts when analyzing the label. The second thing you want to analyze is calories, which I already touched on a little bit. So, calories are the units of energy that your body needs to function. And if your goal is to lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit, meaning you're eating less calories than you burn on a daily basis. And so, something I want to be clear about is calories are not all made equal. So, some people say, calories in, calories out, it's that simple. As long as you're in a calorie deficit, you'll lose weight, which technically is true, but 200 calories of salmon does not equal 200 calories of Skittles. Reason being, yes, they're both 200 calories, but 200 calories of salmon will keep you full longer. So that means that you're probably not going to overeat, which will make it easier to stay in a calorie deficit. Salmon also has other things like omega-3s and other nutrients in it that are beneficial for your overall health. And so if you are eating, 200 calories of fast food versus, home cooked food, yes, it's the same amount of calories, but you don't get the same benefits from them, which is why food quality matters. So when to really care about calories is when you're comparing similar products. So if I'm looking at two different types of chips, I want to look at the calories. When not to stress about it so much is when you're eating more whole foods because they're very nutrient dense. They're usually very low in calories in the first place. Like you don't really need to compare spinach versus tomato or kale versus spinach because they're both pretty whole, nutrient dense foods. It's fine. You can eat a lot of them and it's not a lot of calories and they have a lot of nutritional benefits. So, the next nutrient we want to talk about is protein, which will be at the bottom of the nutrition label, but I want to talk about it first because it's a really important macronutrient. So, protein has a lot of benefits. Number one, it makes you more satisfied than other macronutrients because it has the highest thermic effect of food. Thermic effect of food, otherwise known as TEF, means when you digest protein, you actually burn calories and you burn more calories than you do when you digest carbs or fat. So, helps you burn more calories and helps you boost your metabolism. Also, protein helps you with building and maintaining muscle mass, and women with more muscle have a faster metabolism. So, another benefit. Another thing is that if you just consume protein, you'll stay full longer. So if you have a bowl of rice by itself, you might be hungry in, say, an hour. But if you have rice and chicken and salmon and tofu or whatever that protein source is, you'll stay full much longer, which once again just makes it easier to be in a calorie deficit and makes it easier to lose weight. Protein also helps you reduce craving and stabilize blood sugar levels. And so that way you're not randomly having cravings for sweets and salty foods, and also just keeps your blood sugar levels stable all day, which just makes it once again easier to remain in your calorie deficit. So here's a simple hack to determine if something's really high protein. A lot of these companies will slap the word high protein on the front of the label to make you think, oh, this is a high protein snack, let me get it. Because protein is very popular right now. You notice there's high protein drinks, bars, but now there's high protein cookies, brownies, donuts, like everything's high protein according to the label or according to the front of the package. But is it really? Here's how you know. I have a very simple hack for you. So what you're going to do is turn to the back of the nutrition label where you can find the protein number. You're going to take that protein number and add a 0 to it and then compare it to the calories. If that number is the same or a little bit less or higher, then it's high protein. If it's way lower, not high protein. So let me go through a simple example. Say that the protein amount on the nutrition label says 18, right? 18, if you add a 0, is 180. Now let's say we look at the calories and the calories are 150. 180 is higher than 150, so this is a high protein snack. Let's take another example. Say that the protein number is 200, or sorry, protein number is 20. 20 out of 0 is 200. And then the total calories on this package says 200. These numbers are equal. That's considered high protein. Great. Now, say the protein number is 18. We add a 0 again. That's 180. The total calories is 200. 180 is a little less than 200, but it's still pretty close. That's still considered a high protein item. But now, say that the protein number is 10. We add a zero to that. That's 100. The total calories in the serving size are 200. 100 is half of 200. That's not a high protein item. And there are a lot of snacks out there you'll find where the front of the label says high protein, but when you switch to the back and do this quick hack, you'll find that it's really not high protein. So 10 grams is a decent amount of protein, but if the total calories are 200, it's really not high protein. That's like half of the number. So use this hack next time you're looking at nutrition labels in your cabinet or at the grocery store to determine if the things that say they're high protein really are. And this will really help you start choosing items that are actually high protein. It'll help you reach your protein goals for the day versus things that are taking up a ton of your calories, but not giving you protein in return. So next, let's talk about everyone's favorite, just kidding, it's not, carbs. It's everyone's favorite, I feel like, macronutrient because we all love carbs, but it's not when it comes to weight loss because the weight loss industry makes you feel like carbs are bad, and they are not. So carbs are a combination of three things: fiber, starches, and sugars. And contrary to what a lot of people say, carbs are not the enemy, they are your bestie. Carbs give your body energy. If you have a run, a lifting session, a walk, carbs give you energy to have a good lifting session. They give you brain fuel. So the issue is I see a lot of people eating a lot of simple carbs, which we'll talk about, which is like a lot of candies, chips, processed carbs. And so that's why they're eating, but then they're having more cravings and they're still hungry. But if you make most of the carbs you're consuming from whole food sources, then it's great. You can still have the other things, the chips, the candies, the cookies, but maybe make that just a little bit less of your daily allocation. So we have two different types of carbs. The first is simple carbs. These are fast digesting into your body. So you eat them and they digest very quickly into your system. So some examples of these things could be candies, cookies, white breads, pastries. There's nothing wrong with simple carbs, but what they can cause is blood sugar spikes followed by crashes, which can lead to more cravings. So if you've ever eaten like a dessert or baked good, a lot of times it makes you crave more stuff afterwards. Maybe you're stuffed for a little bit, but then you're like, oh, now I want more baked goods. That's because it's a simple carb. So that's the first type. Then you have complex carbs. These are slow digesting, and because they digest slower, they provide steady energy. So a great way to think about it is if something takes longer to like go through your system, it's in your system longer, which means you can use it longer to get more activities done. So this is what most of your carbohydrates should consist of. So things like quinoa, oats, brown rice, vegetables, just a couple examples, whole wheat pasta, whole wheat bread are examples of complex carbs. Now let's talk about fiber. So fiber is really, really important because when you eat more high fiber foods, it keeps you full much longer. It also feeds good gut bacteria, and better gut management leads to better weight management. So you definitely want to prioritize fiber within your carbohydrate allocation. So here's what to look for on labels when you're looking at fiber. So fiber is going to be under the carbohydrate section. 5 grams plus is excellent. If something has 5 or more grams of fiber, it's going to keep you full for a long time, which is really helpful for weight loss. If it has 3 to 4 grams, this is still pretty decent. It'll keep you full for a decent amount of time. I would still put a check mark on anything with 3 to 4 grams. Anything that's like 0 to 1 gram of fiber won't keep you full for very long. I would make this not as many things that you're consuming, but you want to focus on more foods that have, I would say, 3 grams or more of fiber in each meal that you're consuming. The rule of thumb is if you're looking at two similar products, always choose the one that's higher in fiber simply because it's going to keep you full longer, which is the name of the game when it comes to weight loss. So if one product has, say, 4 grams of fiber, the other one has 1, choose the one with 4 every single time. And that one with 4 grams of fiber is likely also going to have better other ingredients and calorie and macro numbers on the label. So now let's talk about sugars. This one is really sneaky because a lot of companies now are trying to hide sugar by putting in a lot of artificial sweeteners, added sugars, things like that. So when you look at a nutrition label, there's going to be total sugars. And total sugar is going to be a mix of natural sugars, so sugars that naturally occur in that food, and then added sugars, which are sugars that are added into the food on top of what's already naturally occurring. The FDA recommends a max of 50 grams of added sugar per day, but for weight loss, I recommend more so like 25. So remember, I'm saying added sugar. So things like bananas, strawberries, things that naturally have sugar in them, we're not counting that because those are natural foods. But added sugar meaning foods that are adding sugar within the processing. So some protein bars have added sugar, cookies, cakes, things like that have added sugar. So we want to stay no more than I would say 25 grams of added sugar per day. So here's some natural sugars that I would not stress about at all. So number one is lactose. These are things that naturally occur in a lot of dairy products. So things like your milk, your cottage cheese, your yogurt, those have natural sugars in them, so I wouldn't stress about those because it comes in the natural form of the food. Another one is fructose, which naturally occurs in fruits. I wouldn't stress about that either. And the reason is these foods come with other benefits, like a lot of fiber, vitamins, and nutrients. So even though they have sugars in them, because they are diverse in other nutrients, your body processes them a lot better than refined sugars. So what a lot of companies will do is there's a lot of sneaky sugar names that you don't recognize. So in the past on labels, it would just say sugar in the ingredients, and that was it. But now there's all these, new ingredients that they've made that are basically sugar in disguise. Typically, anything that ends with an ose is a sugar. So, for example, sucralose, maltose, dextrose, fructose. So, for example, you've probably seen high fructose corn syrup on a lot of things. That is going to be a form of sugar. And then another thing to look out for is a lot of companies now will make some products that are basically zero sugar, but what they're doing is adding a bunch of artificial sweeteners to it. So, yes, there's no sugar, but it's artificial sugars, basically. And we still don't have a lot of evidence on the long term impacts of a lot of these. So, I recommend really limiting things with artificial, like sweeteners. So, for example, there's a product, I'm not going to name it, but it's very popular. It has zero sugar in it, according to the label. However, when you look at the ingredients, it has a lot of artificial sweeteners like sucralose, aspartame is something to look out for as well, and a lot of other things too. So, whenever you're looking at a label, you want to look to see on the back when it gives ingredients, do you see a lot of oses in there? Like a lot of the sucralose, maltose, things like that. If you do, then it has a bunch of artificial sweeteners in it, even though it's zero sugar. Or if it says it has a certain amount of added sugar, that's where that's coming from. So, what I want you to do is look at an ingredient label of something that you think might have more sugar than it claims and count how many different sugar alternatives are in it. So, some other natural sounding sugars that are still sugars are honey, syrup, agave, date sugar, cane juice, fruit juice concentrate. All those are still sugar as well, just another example. So, look on the ingredient label and see how many different types of sugar you see. If you see more than three of the different things I've said, whether it's the oses or these other natural sounding sugars in the first seven ingredients, there's a lot of sugar in that product. It might not say it on the label, but it's hiding those ingredients in all these different complicated names that most of us don't know. If you're looking at a nutrition label and you can't pronounce a lot of the ingredients or they're not ingredients that you know where to find at the store, it's probably a highly processed product and probably has a lot of secret hiding sugars in it. So here's kind of an easy skill to determine what's an appropriate amount of added sugar for a product. So 0 to 5 grams of added sugar, that's totally fine. Definitely still good for weight loss. I would put a check mark on that. Added sugar is still fine if it's in moderation. Moderate added sugar is, I would say, 6 to 12 grams. This is still okay, not bad, but I would not have this like every single day, multiple times a day as a snack. High sugar would be 13 to 25 grams. This is hidden in a lot. So the issue is a lot of these companies, like it'll say high protein, high this, high that. But if you look, it's like 20 grams of added sugar. That's basically like a candy bar. Right? And so it might seem healthier because it's a protein bar, but it's a protein bar with a bunch of sugar. So 13 to 25 grams, I'd consider high sugar. I'd really be weary about having that as an everyday snack because you can find snacks that are lower in sugar that are still really good. Very high sugar is anything that's 25 grams plus. So like a typical Coca-Cola drink, that's going to be an example of something that's really, really high in sugar. I'd really be wary about having these as everyday snacks or drinks. And if you're someone who likes soda, I recommend like a low sugar, low calorie soda brand like Poppy or Olipop. If you really like soda, they may taste a little bit watered down, but you can find some flavors that you probably like. It's only, I think, like 50 calories, 4 grams of sugar maybe, and it also has some dietary fiber in there as well. Now let's talk about fats. So your body needs fats. There's this saying that fat makes you fat, but that's not true. Eating fat is very helpful for your overall body when you're eating the right types. So there's 3 different main types of fat. We're going to talk about each of them and which ones are more important to prioritize over other ones. But first, why is fat so important? Number one, it really helps with hormone production. So a lot of our clients are menopausal, so we have them eat a little bit more fat compared to other clients. Also helps with brain function as well. So keeping a healthy brain, you want to prioritize your fats. They also help with overall vitamin absorption. So when you're consuming food, you'll be able to absorb those vitamins a little bit more. They also help keep you more satisfied from your food. So, a lot of benefits from fats, especially for prioritizing the right ones. So, first type of fat is called unsaturated fats. These are the ones you want to prioritize the most. And there's two subcategories of them. There's monounsaturated fats and there's polyunsaturated fats. Some examples of monounsaturated fats are things like olive oil, nuts, natural butter spreads like nut butter spreads, cashews. Some examples of polyunsaturated fats are fatty fish, so things like salmon. We also have things like flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts. These type of fats help you fight inflammation, they support your heart health, and they also help with overall blood sugar management and brain function. So definitely want to prioritize this over the other two fats I'm going to share with you. The next type of fat is saturated fats, which are still pretty good, but you want to consume them more in moderation. You get these in things like animal products, coconut oil, palm oil, full fat dairy. And for these, you just want to focus on quality sources. So, for example, grass fed meats, full fat dairy with more natural ingredients. And the last type of fat is trans fat, which you want to be a little bit more weary of. And here's why: it raises bad cholesterol, lowers good cholesterol, and also increases inflammation. Trans fat is basically fake fat. So it's fat that was basically produced to be in certain foods, but it's not really naturally occurring. And how to spot it, because sometimes it'll say trans fat 0 on a label, but the way that these companies work is if something has less than 0.5 trans fat in it, then they can claim 0. So if something says like more than 0 grams of trans fat, I just probably would choose something else. But if it does say 0, here's a hack to know if it really is 0 or if it's like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. So in the ingredients, if you see partially hydrogenated oil or hydrogenated oil, it has trans fat in it. Some places that you might find trans fat are in some fast foods, margarine, some frozen pizzas, microwavable popcorn, packaged baked goods, and even some coffee creamers. So if you like any of these products, just check your labels to see if they have trans fat in them. And if they don't, just look at the ingredients list to see if you see partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated oil in there. The next thing we want to look out for is sodium. So sodium is really important because when you eat more sodium, it leads to water retention, which leads to more kind of frustration around the scale. So what to look out for is, here's how to determine if something is high sodium, low sodium, and how to determine how much you should be eating on a day-to-day basis. So you want to aim for no more than 2,300 mg of sodium in a day, which equates to about 1 teaspoon of salt. So some sneaky things that might have high sodium in them, like more than 600, which is a lot for one singular meal, could be things like canned soups, some frozen foods, some deli meats also, and then even obviously restaurant meals, because they just pour a bunch of sodium and salt on your stuff. So some ways to look out for this is when you're looking at certain labels of like canned soups or deli meats, look at the label. If it's like 600 or more of sodium in that one item, that's a lot for one singular item. So you want to be a bit weary of that. I recommend choosing low sodium options when possible or no salt added, and that'll just help you manage your sodium intake on a regular basis. Also, obviously, a simple hack is just cooking more at home because you can control how much sodium is in your food. So something I'll do now, like I still eat fast food because it's good, but what I'll do is if I'm ordering fries, I might say, hey, can I get it with light salt? Because that way the person's a little bit lighter with their hand with the sodium. Because with a lot of these restaurants, you can't control how much extra sodium they're putting in your food, and they don't care. One person might just drown it in sodium, another person won't. You don't know who you're getting that day. So if you are going to eat out, I would just try to ask for like light salt, things like that. And I would also just try to cook most of your meals at home because then you can control how much sodium is in your food. Now, something I've kind of alluded to throughout this entire episode is the ingredient list. This is very important because we talked about how to understand protein, fat, carbs, serving sizes, but you also want to understand what's in the actual ingredients of your food. So here are some simple hacks to read an ingredient label to understand, are these ingredients things that are going to be helpful for me, harmful for me, things that maybe I should be weary of, eat in moderation. So when you read an ingredient list, it's listed out by what ingredient is mostly occurring in the food versus the least reoccurring. So whatever ingredients is first on the list is the ingredients that's the highest in the food. So a simple thing, if the first ingredients on the list is something sugar, sucralose, anything that's like a sugar alternative, that food is mostly sugar. So for example, this is like a small example, but there's a supplement that's really popular that I've seen. And if I look at the ingredient label, the first ingredient is sugar. So it's obviously very low calorie because it's a supplement. It's not like a food, but they use a lot of sugar to make the supplement taste good. So that's a clear indicator that most of the ingredients in this food or whatever it is sugar. So the first three ingredients really make up most of the majority of that food item because you'll see on a lot of labels it'll say, after it lists a couple ingredients, it'll say contains 2% or less of, and then the rest of the ingredients. So that's how you know the first 3 to 5 things are what most of the food or drink is made out of. So take a look at those first 3 to 5 things, and if you see any of the oses in there, that means a good amount of it is going to be sugar. Or if you see, for example, hydrogenated oil or partially hydrogenated oil, that means it has a decent amount of trans fat. So here's my simple checklist to determine if the ingredient list tells me maybe this item isn't for me. Number one, if sugar or any other types of sugar we talked about are in one of the first three ingredients, bit of a red flag for me. Number two, if I can't pronounce most of the ingredients on the label, that's also a red flag because it means it's probably ultra processed. Like if I can't read these ingredients and say, oh, yeah, this is something I can buy in the store, or my grandma wouldn't understand what this is, it's probably ultra processed, red flag for me. If the ingredient list is a mile long, like it's taking me a while to get through it, that's a red flag as well, because it means that it's probably also over processed. I prefer foods where there's not as many ingredients in it. So, for example, if I'm buying peanut butter, it should be peanut butter, salt, and oil. There shouldn't be all these other extra names in there. If there is, that means there's extra processing involved. So you want to stick to things that don't have a super long ingredient list. So when I see one that is very long, it's a red flag. And then the 5 ingredient rule. So the less ingredients, the better. If I can find a product that's 5 ingredients or less, that's going to be better for me. There's some things where it's a bit harder. Like if you find a protein bar or a protein drink, it takes a lot of different ingredients in there to make those products. But for a lot of things that should be natural, like a peanut butter, I shouldn't see a lot of ingredients on the list. An overnight oats thing, I shouldn't see a lot of ingredients on the list. So the 5 ingredient rule is the rule I follow when I'm trying to buy foods that are supposed to be more whole, natural foods. So here are some mistakes to avoid when you're looking at food labels in the store. Number one is only looking at calories and nothing else. If you just want to lose weight, you don't care about your health or anything else, sure, just look at calories. But I'm telling you, there's more to the story because I found, like I said earlier, when I started my weight loss journey, I just cared about calories. But as I've gotten older, I realized it's not just calories, it's about the quality of my food. So calories tells you, yes, how many calories you're eating, but the macros tell you what is in those calories. The ingredient list tells you what's in this food item. So it's really important to dig into not just calories, but overall ingredients and macros as well. The second is following for the marketing on the front of the package. So gluten-free, organic, high protein, that's great. But even gluten-free, like people think gluten-free is healthy. That's like a popular term right now, but no. There's just some people who eat gluten-free because of their specific health conditions, but gluten-free doesn't mean healthier. For some folks, that's just what they prioritize eating because of certain health conditions that they have. But for example, gluten-free bread might be gluten-free, but it might have a bunch of other ingredients, whereas you could have a bread that's not gluten-free that has a lot of vitamins and minerals in it as well. So don't just look at the front of the package, look and see what's actually in the food and are these things good for me. Mistake number three is comparing products with different serving sizes against each other. So, for example, if you see two products that are 200 calories each, but one is 200 calories for 10 pieces and one is 200 calories for 5 pieces, you're comparing apples and oranges. So you can't compare them one to one because you're eating a different amount of the things in the package to get the 200 calories. So just be aware when you're comparing items to also look at serving sizes, not just calories as well. And this is really why with our program, like we're not just about helping our clients lose weight, eat less, move more. We also are big on education. So we actually have an entire training we do with our clients around reading food labels. We help them understand food labels and we help them make more decisions in alignment with their health goals. So some of our clients have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, their A1C is rising, right? They have things that they want to reverse like prediabetes. So we're not just telling them, hey, here's a meal plan where you're eating less calories. We're telling them, okay, you also want to lower your blood pressure. You also want to reverse prediabetes. Here's what we need to look for on our labels and make our meal plans around these types of things. And so we educate our clients so they know how to make intuitive decisions when they're shopping. And so they lose weight and lower those numbers as well. So when they go to their next doctor's visits, their doctor's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what you're doing, but let's take you off the medication. Or you're no longer at risk for prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. So if those are things that you want to achieve, not just weight loss, but overall health, and not being scared to go to the doctor, then I definitely recommend applying for our coaching program because we're all about education, information, as well as implementation. The next mistake is thinking you need to avoid all sugars and all added sugars to see results. I'm not telling you this information to say don't ever eat added sugar, don't ever eat this, don't ever eat that. What I'm saying is I just want you to be more aware. So even me, like there's a protein bar I really like that has 12 grams of added sugar. But for me, it's worth it because the protein is like 20 grams of protein and 12 grams of added sugar is not going to kill me. And if that 12 grams of added sugar kind of satisfies my sweet tooth, so I'm not eating like a whole 500-calorie cinnamon roll at the end of the night, then it's cool. So don't think you can't have certain things. It's just more so about being aware of what's on your label. So you're not eating added sugar like 20 grams with every single snack. Maybe you have one snack with a bit of added sugar and the other ones may be like a fruit or some nuts or whatever that looks like for you. So thank you so much for tuning into the Fit and Fulfilled show today. Hope you walked away with practical strategies you can use to read food labels confidently and feel more confident in your body and in your overall health journey. So if you found this helpful, do me a favor and subscribe and share this with a friend who would also benefit from this information as well. And if you're a busy professional woman who wants to lose 20 to 50 pounds without cutting out your favorite foods, then I definitely recommend that you apply for our coaching program, the Fit and Fulfilled Academy. In our program, we help women like you by providing the coaching, guidance, and support to help you achieve lasting weight loss through nutrition, fitness, and mindset work. All the details are down below. Next week, we're diving into a brand new topic that you're not going to want to miss. But until then, remember you deserve to feel as confident in your body as you do in your career. Take care.